Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm super excited to show you how I built my own Audrey II puppet. This project has been on my mind for a long time, and I've built plenty of puppets before, but nothing even this complex. But when the idea hit me, I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I'm so glad I took it. And because Little Shop of Horrors is so popular in high schools and community theaters, tons of productions end up creating their own versions of Audrey II. There's just something cool about seeing everyone's different take on this iconic character. For me, I really wanted to try making one myself. Even though I built puppets before, I knew right from the get-go this was no small feat. But the good news is that most of what I had were from the craft store or the dollar store. Seriously, foam, paint, glue, all of that, just nothing too fancy. So today I'm going to walk you through how I made this hungry little plant from scratch. Like any of my puppets, I started with the design. Before I touched any foam, paint, or glue, I needed a solid concept of what my Audrey II was going to look like. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to build Pod 2, which is the first big stage where Audrey II has noticeably grown from the smallest sprout we see at the start of the show. It's the point where the plant really starts showing personality, so it felt the perfect version to bring to life. For my concept piece, I wanted to give it something unique. Most Audreys are just basically green with a little bit of red or purple, but I thought maybe adding yellow spot patterns would really make this one stand out and really add to the sci-fi aspect. And I definitely wanted the lips to be more bold and oversized so it had a bit more attitude and expression. Another thing I had planned from the start was the pot. I wanted Audrey to sing in a pot just like in the show, and my original idea was to cut a hole in the bottom so I could put my arm up through it and control the puppet. However, I actually ended up using something completely different in the final build. I'll talk more about that when we get into that part. Once I settled on the look, the shape, the colors, the personality, I knew it was time to move on to the fun part, actually building the puppet. The first thing I tackled was the top half of Audrey II. I used a simple block of foam, just nothing special, just the kind you can pick up from a craft store. And instead of creating a pattern or tracing out templates, I decided to go completely freehand for this one. I began by carving the foam into one big rounded, like Easter egg shape. That gave me the basic form I needed for Audrey's head, and later I carved a piece of foam for the lips. After finishing the bottom half of Audrey, the next step was figuring out how to connect the two halves in a way that would give them a clean, flexible mouth I could puppeteer. For that, I used a sheet of red fleece. I took the top half of Audrey and the bottom half and measured the distance between them to figure out how long and wide the mouth lining needed to be. Once I had the measurements, I drew the shape directly on the fleece, cut it out, and glued it along the edges of both foam pieces. That created like a smooth inner mouth that not only looked good but also held the two halves together securely. Next came the teeth. Audrey II's teeth are a small detail, but they make a big difference in giving the puppet that sharp, slightly unsettling personality it needs. To make them, I kept things really simple actually. I carved small pieces of foam into little tooth shapes and then wrapped them in white fleece. After that, I glued them along inside the mouth where I wanted them. And if I'm being honest, the one thing I might change if I ever build Audrey 2 again for the teeth, I would probably make them out of air dry clay next time, just to give them that harder, more polished look. But considering I was working with materials I already had around the house, the foam and fleece teeth still turned out totally fine and fit the overall style of the puppet. For my Audrey 2, I knew I wanted to add a tongue. Most versions of Audrey 2 that I've seen don't really include one, but I thought it would be a fun detail that added some personality and some extra for the puppeteer to play with. The idea was to make a tongue that could be controlled from the inside of the puppet, obviously. I started cutting out a piece of foam and carving it into a long, like venom tongue shape. Then I covered it in red fleece so it matched the inside of the mouth. But once I held it up to the puppet, I realized the long tongue wasn't really working. It didn't look right and felt a bit way too disturbing even for Audrey II. I still like the idea of having the tongue, so I trimmed it down and made it so much smaller. After getting the tongue in place, it was time to actually paint the puppet. I painted both the top and bottom halves, making sure the greens and yellows and shading all blended in the way I wanted. Once that dried, I went and painted the lips, giving them that bold standout color I had planned from the beginning. In the video clip you're seeing here of me practicing with the puppet, this was one of the first times I really tested everything, the mouth movement, the tongue, the overall balance, just to make sure it all felt right. And you might not have noticed right away, but I added a little detail I'm actually pretty proud of. Audrey 2 has a gold tooth. It's something I just threw in there for fun, a little unique touch that gave this version of Audrey 2, feel more like mine. Once the painting was done, I moved on to the sleeve for the puppet. I picked up some green velvety fabric and measured it around my arm so it could fit. After gluing the fabric together in a long tube, I shaped the end so it had a leafy look, almost like the sleeve itself was part of Audrey II's body. Then I attached the sleeve directly to the puppet so my arm could move around comfortably inside and operate the mouth and tongue. After that, I worked on the 3 vines. These were really simple to make. I just cut out 3 long pieces of foam and wrapped each one in the same green velvet fabric I used for the sleeve. It gave everything a unified look and made the vines more flexible, but still sturdy enough to pose or shake around during performance. Finally, let's talk about the pot setup. Again, originally my plan was to use a basic plastic flower pot and cut a hole in the bottom for my arm. But while I was browsing through the dollar store, I actually came across a plastic trash bin that was the perfect size for pot 2. So I just used that instead. I cut a hole in the bottom, just like I planned, and then painted the outside with orange and brown, give it that classic gardening pot look. It ended up being a great solution, and honestly, it worked even better than the pot I originally had in mind. After attaching the sleeves to the base of the pot, puppeteering the whole thing actually became pretty easy, and the pot kept everything stable so I could really focus on the movements without worrying about the structure shifting around. Next, I picked up some artificial leaves and started gluing them onto the sleeve. I also glued a few directly onto the pot itself. This wasn't just for looks, adding the leaves gave the puppet more stability, making the whole setup feel more secure during the movement. And finally, I made a last minute decision that I'm really glad I decided to do. I added yellow dots to the artificial leaves to match the spots on Audrey II's head. It tied the whole design together and made everything feel more cohesive and intentional. And that's the full process of how I built my Audrey II puppet. This project was definitely a challenge, but it was actually one of the most fun builds I ever done. I got to experiment, try new techniques, put my own twist on an iconic character, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're planning on making your own Audrey II or any kind of puppet, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thanks for watching, thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you around next time.